Hi friend, I just wanted to take a minute to invite you to our Lash Biz Babes Experience 2026. This is a one-day all online event happening on May 2nd, and our theme for the year is going all in. We are shaking things up and doing it differently than anyone ever has before. This is going to be an all online event as usual, but it's going to be 100% a curated journey throughout your day as we guide you through the mindset, strategy, and passion needed to go all in on your business to make it your best year in business yet. All lash artists, estheticians, and beauty professionals are invited to join us. There will be guided sessions, interactive workshops, a panel discussion, and big giveaways happening throughout that whole day. And tickets are on sale now for only $199. Payment plans are available. Let's go all in on our businesses for 2026 together. All the details and the link for tickets are down in the show notes below. I would love to have you join us online in May.
Welcome to this week's episode of Lash Biz Babes, the podcast for solo beauty business owners who want to build a full clientele and create a life and business that they truly love. My name is Erica. I'm your host. I'm a lash artist turned beauty business coach and lash educator. And this week we're going to be talking about why you shouldn't quote unquote charge your worth in your beauty business. And it's not for the reason that you might initially think when you read that podcast title. So let's talk about it some more. And this is a topic that I started feeling really strongly about last year. I started seeing a lot of posts that were like, charge your worth, know your worth and chart and add some. I'm sure you've seen like some of these posts that I'm talking about, and I don't necessarily think that the intentions behind them were bad. I just don't fully agree with the sentiment, and I'm going to share why. So one thing that I've seen a lot lately in the last probably 2 or 3 years or so is like posts in lash Facebook groups that ask something along the lines of like, here's a picture of my work. How much do you think it's worth? Or how much should I charge? Or how much do you think a client would pay for this? And all too often, lash artists or hairstylists or nail techs or whoever it is in the beauty industry set their prices based on how they perceive their worth as a lash artist or hairstylist or nail tech, or they base their prices based on how they think other people perceive their worth as a lash artist. So this is essentially being like, okay, I don't feel like good enough as a lash artist, so I'm going to charge just a little bit less than other people in my area. Or I don't feel like I'm as good as other people in my area, so I'm going to charge less. Like basically setting your prices based on how you feel about yourself as a lash artist or hairstylist or nail tech or whatever you are, or basically essentially saying, okay, I don't think clients will pay me that much. Like I don't feel like I'm worth paying that much. Like, so I'm going to charge less. And when this happens, you are subconsciously tying your worth to your prices. So if you've ever had an experience where someone tells you like you're too expensive or you charge too much or anything along those lines, and you've ever felt bad about it, this might be the reason why, because it's possible you could have subconsciously tied your worth as a human being to your prices. And so when someone doesn't book due to your prices, it's ended in feeling rejected and feeling bad about ourselves and not feeling good enough and feeling less than and other feelings similar to that. And I know I've personally experienced this before, and it doesn't really feel that great. And, I've had experiences too where I've been trying to set my prices and decide what to set them at, and been like, and this is even as recently as like a few years ago, like 3 years ago, I was working on my service menu and like my pricing for when we were going to move, and I was like looking up what other people in the area were charging and looking up like my out-of-pocket costs and trying to do the math and get some estimates on that, because I wasn't quite sure how much I was going to be spending on like booth rent and, how much how many like lash trays I was going to have to buy a month yet. So I was just kind of estimating. And I went to set my prices, and I wanted to do like $180 for a volume full set and like $80 for a volume fill. And I just remember thinking, there is just absolutely no way I can charge that. Like, I like basically felt imposter syndrome is like a good way to explain it. Like, I'm not good enough to charge that much. There's no way clients will pay me that. Like, absolutely, there's no way I could charge that. And so I ended up dropping the prices by like $10, which honestly isn't that much of a drop. But at the time it felt like, okay, this is like a little bit out of my comfort zone still, but like good. Like, I felt good about it, which I kind of laugh about now because I'm like much more confident in like how I price things and like how I price services. But at the time, it was really me projecting my feelings of how I felt about myself onto my prices. And then it was like, okay, well, if someone thinks I'm too expensive, then it was like me feeling bad. And then it was just like this whole cycle. And so one thing, like, I've learned so much since then, and, you know, really perfected how I price services, and just learned a lot in the process. And so one of the biggest things that I want you to know, if you don't take anything else out of this episode, is that regardless of your skill level, regardless of how long you've been in business, regardless of how long you've been in the industry, and regardless of what other people may or may not think of you, clients, your friends and family, other lash artists, other hairstylists, like educators, regardless of what they may or may not think about you, you are worthy, and you are valuable, and you are important, and you are deserving. And one of my favorite quotes from Amanda Francis, she's like a money mindset coach. I read her book, Rich AF. I highly recommend it. It's all about like money perceptions, and like perspectives, and just viewing it in a new way to be able to like manifest more of it into your life. It was a really good perspective shifting book for me. But one of my favorite quotes from that book said, "You are worthy. You are worthy because you are." And I full-heartedly believe that. Like, your worth is not dependent on outside factors or sources. You are just worthy. It doesn't go up or down based on how much money you make or don't make. It doesn't go up or down based on how good of a lash artist you or anyone else feels like you are. It doesn't go up and down based on how like pretty you think you are. It doesn't go up or down based on what other people's opinions of you are. You are just worthy because you are, and that doesn't change. It's always there, and there's nothing else to it. And your worth is not equivalent to your prices. This is why I'm such a big believer in pricing your services objectively. So taking the feelings out of it, and basically, as my business coach would say, like, take off your personal hat, put on your CEO hat, and think about your prices like you are a real business. Because a lot of times, what I also see happening is people looking at everyone else's prices around them and then deciding, okay, I'm going to go like in the middle, or I'm going to go just a little bit cheaper. I myself have done that before. But at this point, I don't believe that's a great way to price your services. And like, as an example to think about, like, we all love Target, right? I'm sure a majority of us have shopped there before. But have you ever thought about how they price their items? Do you think they look at like Walmart's prices and say, I better just copy them or I won't get customers? Or do you think they look at Walmart's prices and say, I'll just go a little bit lower than their prices or else no one's going to buy? They definitely don't price their services like that. They price based on what their costs are, what their value is, what their supply and demand is. And your lash business or your beauty business is no different. Your prices shouldn't be based on what everyone else around you charges or based on what you think clients might be willing to pay. Your services should be based on things like your out-of-pocket costs, the value you offer your clients, your supply and demand, your goal income. We're going to talk about those a little bit more in just a minute. But you invest so much time and money and energy into your business, and you deserve to make money in return. I've seen posts of people who are like, I made $6 this year because I've never added up my out-of-pocket expenses before. And they didn't price their services based on what they were spending to make sure they were going to make a profit. Like, this is one of the reasons why knowing your numbers is super important. And, if you really want to have a full-time thriving beauty business, it's going to be a really important part is knowing your numbers and not just setting your prices based on everybody else, because you don't know what their out-of-pocket costs are. They might be paying way more in booth rent than you, or they might be working from home and they don't have as much overhead as you do. They might be buying cheaper products or more expensive products, or who knows, they just have different expenses, and every business is going to be different. And going back to the Target and the Walmart thing, you can find the same exact products at both places, but there's going to be price differences, and both businesses still thrive. They still make tons of money every single year, and they are not hurting. They're not going bankrupt because one is more expensive than the other or one's cheaper than the other. They both thrive still, and that's the same with our beauty businesses. We can all have different price points and still have people buying and paying for services at every price point. To give you another example of this, there's all kinds of cars out there, right? All over every level, every price point. There's super expensive sports cars and luxury vehicles. You got middle ones, mid-range, and lower end. They all get you from point A to point B, right? They're all vehicles. Some have other upgrades and luxuries and things. But either way, there's still people buying at every single price point. And that's the same thing with our beauty businesses. There are people buying at every single price point. And so it's going to be your job to align your beauty business and your marketing and your experience that you offer your clients and the quality of your service with the level of client that you want to call in. So this is if you want high paying clients, then you're not marketing yourself as affordable or just for anybody and everyone. So essentially it's deciding what level of clientele that you want and then making your business match that so that you can really easily call them in as a client for you. So let's go back just a little bit and talk a little bit more about pricing your services objectively. So that's, like I was saying, taking your personal feelings out of it, putting your CEO hat on, and thinking about your business like a real business would. So pricing objectively, here are a few different ways of viewing your pricing and helping you determine how to set it. So your out-of-pocket costs. So this is everything business related, from product to booth rent to continuing education, everything that you pay for your business. These are all the things that are write-offs. These are your out-of-pocket costs, and something that you should be taking into account for setting your prices. I love to have a cost per service price so that I know exactly how much I'm spending per service. And that way I know, okay, if I set my prices at if my cost per service is $15 and I'm doing an $80 fill, then okay, $15 of expenses, 20%, 30% for taxes, save that. And then the rest can be, I could put a little bit into savings. I could put a little bit of that into an account to invest in my business further. And then I can know exactly how much of that is going to be profit every time. So I can really plan for my business very well financially. So out-of-pocket costs, I feel that's a really non-negotiable point of setting your prices. You've got to know how much you're spending. The next thing is the value that you offer your clients. So an elevated client experience is going to allow you the ability to charge more. So this is like going back to the car analogy. Every car is going to get you, well, obviously as long as it's like a working car, but every vehicles, they're all going to get you from point A to point B and like drive. They have like a similar capacity to do similar things. However, some have upgraded luxuries and, features and extras and, like the leather seats and like the seats that warm up and like the auto start, I don't think that's what it's called, but like the button you can press on your key fob and start your car when you're inside, or like there's so many different crazy things that cars can do these days. But I think you get my point. There are cars, and because they have those extra added features and that really good experience and that quality and that comfort and whatever else that extra that they add, that makes it a higher price point, right? So a lot of times with cars too, you'll have like, it's the same exact vehicle, but it's different like models of it. So there's like a lower package, a mid package, and an upper package. So it's the same thing. They just have different features and different add-ons. So that's really similar to beauty businesses. Like all of our client experiences are going to be different. And if you have a really good client experience that offers your clients like comfort and convenience and ease and like personability and, it's like super clean, everything is like based around the level of client that you want to have come into you, then they're going to be willing to pay extra for that or pay more for that. And clients who are willing to pay more generally are looking for their service provider with that intent in mind, saying, I'm willing to pay more. Like I'm looking for a lash artist or a hairstylist, whoever, that's going to do a really good job, a really quality job. That maybe it's close to me, maybe they have online booking, they've got a good experience. Like they're willing to pay extra for all these like attributes and things that they are looking for in service providers. And that's what they're looking for when they're searching for somebody too. So to give you an example of this, like my sister and I have tried like so many pedicure places in our town, and we tried a lot of like the cheaper, like $25, $30 ones. And a lot of it was like the same basic pedicure experience, which I'm sure you've had too if you've gone for a pedicure before, just like your basic nail salon. And a lot of them didn't have great sanitation. A couple of them we left with like cut toes. A couple of them just like my sister left with like infected toes. And it was just like, we got so sick of that. We were just like, we want to find somewhere that is super clean, really comfortable, has a really great experience, and that we're not going to have to sit and wait for an hour to get into. And we ended up finding a place that was like $50 or $60 for a pedicure, which is on the higher end, but we had such a good experience that now we're like very loyal clients to them. So it's the same thing with lash services or hair services, nail services, whatever it is. Like if you have that elevated experience for your clients, like the higher paying clients are looking for that. And they're willing to pay more for that. So your client experience is something to really be intentional about. And if you've listened to past episodes of Lash Biz Babes, I've talked about this a little bit before, how your client experience is from very start to very finish. So from the very first time you have contact with a potential client, from, that really honestly starts with like your online presence, because even if they're hearing about you from word of mouth, a lot of times they're looking you up first too, to see who you are, what you're about, what your prices are, look at your work. Like they're still going to look you up online a majority of the time. So your online presence really sets the tone for the kind of clients that you call into your business and the type of clients that you book. It sets that context. So if you've never thought about your client experience before, start writing this down, like step by step. What do potential clients have to do in order to find me, to book with me? What happens from when they book with me to when they come in? What happens when they're in my studio? And how can you make that more personable, more comfortable, more clean, more like customized and comfortable, and just really catered to who your ideal clients are? So the value you offer your clients, that can allow you to charge more for your services. The next thing to objectively base your pricing on is your supply and demand. So as service providers, our supply is the amount of appointments that you have available. So the more demand you have for your services, the less supply of appointments that you have, which is going to mean charging more for your services. So this is why you hear a lot of educators and coaches and things say, like, if you are booked out and you can't fit anybody else in, or you are super busy, raise your prices, because your supply is very little at that point, which means your prices are more. I've had a couple of coaching clients that were like, I raised my prices and I still so booked out. But they were, again, able to raise their prices within 6 months of that or less, and still did really well and lost very minimal clients. But especially when you raise your prices in an effective way, you can essentially work less and make just as much, if not more, than you were before. And so it's basically working smarter, not harder, and working less and making more. And then you open up the ability to be able to call in clients who are willing to pay that higher price too. Even if you lose a few in the process, you've got that open space for new clients who are looking for that good experience, looking to, have a good service provider like yourself, all of those things, and who are willing to pay for extra or pay more for that in return. So this is really just, it's not personal, it's just business. So your out-of-pocket costs, the value you offer your clients, your supply and demand. Another thing you can think about is, education, your continued education, especially the lash industry. It's still so new, and there's so many newer products and techniques coming out all the time that I always recommend taking one class a year. And so, if you are really investing in your business and you're trying to make it better for your clients, give them the best service possible, that's another thing to take into account when it comes to raising your prices, because you're going to be offering them a better service and a better experience because you are continuing to invest in yourself and invest in your education. And that in turn deserves to be compensated. And you're elevating your business and just continuing to cultivate your clientele through it. And I know this can be a difficult concept sometimes when you are really close with your clients, especially if you've had clients for a really long time. And obviously it's your business. You get to do things how they feel best for you. But especially right now in times of inflation and everything like that, to be able to keep up with the cost of business, it's probably the better idea to raise prices for everybody. But again, it's your business. You get to decide how you want to do things, but make sure that you're doing them to be profitable, because you are a business and you've got to make money at the end of the day. So really, just to sum up and wrap things up for this episode, the time, the energy, the money, and the effort that you are investing into your business and into your clients are worthy of being compensated, no matter what point you're at in your beauty business. And I hope you know that your prices are not equal to your worth. And that's why I believe that you shouldn't, quote unquote, charge your worth in your beauty business, because your worth has nothing to do with it. You're just worthy because you are, and your prices are something that I believe should be set objectively based on the different things that we talked about today. So I hope this was really helpful for you and maybe eye-opening as well, and just to show you a different perspective. And if it was impactful for you, I'd love for you to share it with any lash friends that you have, or share it on your Instagram page and tag me. I always love to see when you guys have been listening. So thank you so much for being here this week, and I will talk to you again on next week's episode.